Make sure I'm live. Go away, Rodney. Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. We are coming to you live from LivingFelt because it's Happy Woolly Wednesday! The most sunshiny fairies in all the land are here with me today to hang out with you and make stuff. So if you saw our queue up for the live show today, we are making silky, shiny papers for your wet felting adventures, and I'm so excited to share this with you. It's so easy. Because it's really fun. Oh, you know, no 2 days are the same. Thank goodness for that. Keeping us on our toes. So thank you all for being here. If you're excited to be here, we hope that you'll join in the chat, say hi, and where you're from, like so many of our BFFs are already doing. I want to say hey to River in Oregon and Mary in California. Hi, y'all. Thank you for being here. We have Sylvia in the Netherlands, Alicia's in England, JJ's in Wisconsin, Bonnie in Arizona. We have friends all over the world joining us today, and this is our live show. So if you've just tuned in, this is about an hour, sometimes a little bit more. If you're watching the live play, we hope you'll join in the chat. If you're watching the replay, you can comment down below, and you can also fast forward to get to the tutorial part. So we are going to do a tutorial, and usually the first few minutes we like to do a little live. The fairies like to come in and show some of our products so that for our friends who do shop with us, you can see the products a little up close and personal. And today they're all sunshiny and warm in their colors. Before we jump into that, I also want to say hi to our friend Karen Oswald, who is across the pond. She's in Sweden, right? She's in Sweden. And Karen sent us these super cute postcards to share with our BFFs. She sent us a stack of them, and they have her cute little felted beings on them. And she's not pitching her business any at all. She just said that, you know, during these times of lockdown, getting real mail has just been so special. And we feel the same way. When we get real mail and cards and gifts from our friends, it's so fun. So for our next prizes, we're going to be giving these away in your prize box until we run out. So congratulations, y'all. And I want to do one quick gift giveaway. So during the live show, we get your feedback and comments, and your name goes into our magic felted hat, and we give away prizes at the end. But we also give away prizes for comments after the live show. And so we had a whole bunch, like over 80 people commented on the last week's video where we made pre-felts. So our winners today are winning a specialty designer pack of your choice. We have 12 of them. This is the blues, which we felted blues last week. And our winners are Leslie Harrison. Leslie said, "Thank you for this tutorial. I was wondering about the silk fabric. I noticed you didn't cover the edges with wool. Some of my silk pieces show raw edges. Maybe they are not filled enough." And we responded and just let her know. So you can read that feedback that you don't always have to cover the edges of your silk. I say it depends on how thick that silk is. And then Andrea Barnes says, "Good afternoon. Love all the information that you provide to enhance my felting journey, and love the mobile," which Hannah shared last week. So you gals win a specialty designer pack, and we'll be sending that to you. And for those of you who are watching, remember to join in the conversation, feedback, give a comment, and you might win too. So super fun. We're ready to get started. So if you're ready to get started, how about a big sunshine or some big smiley icon, because the fairies are going to come in now and show you their stuff. And first up is Miss Fairy Becca. Thanks for being here, y'all.
Hi guys, Fairy Becca here. So I know a lot of y'all love to use our MC1 fiber, and we love to use it too. It's in almost every one of our projects we make here on the shop. So I wanted to show you my personal favorite MC1 Studio Pack that we offer. We call it Summer Flowers. So with each round and each Studio Pack we pull, it can vary round to round depending on the colors we have available. So I wanted to show you what colors we have in our current round. Okie dokie.
We'll go back up.
Oh, there we go.
Go ahead.
All right, so
No,
we
you
have
have to hold it.
Oh, hold it up. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me show you the colors that we have. We have honeysuckle, vintage red, lemon peel, rose petal, actually this is buttercup and this is honeysuckle, and then we have hot orange. And of course with each one we include a handy dandy color sheet in case you want to identify them yourself. And this one is personally my favorite. It's the first one I bought for my roommate, and she made the most beautiful abstract sunsets with it. So I think you can have a bunch of fun with this bunch of sun. All right, and up next is Fairy Holly.
Hi everyone! So last week I gave you the blues, and this week I'm bringing you the sunshine with our Merino Top Studio Pack. It's dreaming of summer, so it's full of beautiful warm oranges and citrus colors, and it's perfect for sunsets. Or I know it reminds me, one of my favorite things when I moved to Texas were all the wildflowers on the side of the highways. So let's talk about the colors a little bit. This is but before I do that, this is a smoother fiber, and it's ideal for wet felting. So it's 19.5 microns, and see, I even matched my nail polish to the colors today. So we have coral and citrus, raspberry, sunshine, daffodil, and my favorite color, zinnia, because I always wanted a cute little Volkswagen Bug in orange, and I never got one. It's never too late. Anyway, that's the perfect summer car! So anyway, this is Dreaming of Summer Studio Pack with our Merino Top, and now we have Fairy Lauren.
Hey y'all, happy Woolly Wednesday. So I know we've been working with a lot of pre-felt lately. We've been making our own pre-felt. We've been pre-felting on pre-felt. And this week I wanted to show you our pre-felt in some summer colors that would go great with the other fibers the fairies are showing y'all. So these beautiful colors include dandelion, tangelo, zinnia, red, garnet, and avocado. And these colors are perfect because instead of being out in the heat and melting, you can stay inside, stay cool, and keep on felting. Awesome. So up next we have Fairy Ann.
Hi friends, thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so happy to share with you our Apple Orchard Specialty Designer Pack. Our Specialty Designer Packs have a lot of fiber, like Merino 19.5 micron Merino top, MC1 batting, and Merino silk blends, plus a variety of embellishment fibers as well. These packs are perfect for wet felting or nano felting. They're great surface design packs. We do also include them in our nano felting a scarf kits, so they're great for full projects as well. In the MC1 batting, we have got True Red, Honeysuckle, Lemongrass. In the 19.5 micron Merino top, we have Zinnia, Sunshine, Honey, Red, and Prairie. In the Merino silk blends, we have got Dragon's Breath and my personal favorite, Honeydew. We have got a saffron silk hanky, kiwi sari silk waist, wool neps in Sun and Passion, marigold viscose top, and last but never least, we've got some hand-dyed locks that Fairy Kayla dyed. Yay!
So everyone's just loving all these packs you guys are sharing. They're saying, oh, Karen Vake says, oh, I need that specialty pack. Everyone's really loving them.
Wonderful. We can't wait to see what you make with them. Next up, we have Fairy Kayla.
Yay!
Hi there, everybody. How are you doing? So I know, wow, let me just start that off like that. If you liked what Anne was sharing, you are going to love this. This is our Summer Solstice Specialty Designer Bundle. It comes with lots of luster fibers, 10 ounces of merino top, some silk blends. It's got it all. So let me go ahead and set this down and I will share. Oh, just Okay, we're gonna do it up here. Not a problem. So for the 19.5 micron merino top, we have got honey, red, sunshine, prairie. We have got raspberry as well. And then for our silk blends, we have an ounce of honeydew and an ounce of mango. And then for our luster fibers, right over here, we've got Tussah Silk in red, rainforest bamboo top, sun and pumpkin neps, and then our garnet sari silk waist, and our kiwi hankies over here, and last but not least, our new fire red Angelina.
Oh,
Yeah.
everyone's loving those. Linda says she just put 2 in her cart.
Oh, awesome!
Carrie says it looks like a fiesta.
Isn't it pretty? It's so fun.
River Benson says can't wait for Kayla's comedy. With
Oh,
Kay.
well, I actually brought a guest today to help me tell my joke. So this is my little grumpy lump angel. It's my brother's, late cat, so I made him a little angel for his sweet angel. So, little angel kitty, what do you call, or no. Why don't cats play poker in the jungle?
Why don't cats play poker in the jungle?
Because there's too many cheetahs. And now I'll let Miss Hannah come and relieve me.
Hey everybody, how are y'all doing today? Fairy Hannah here, and today I'm showing off some of our fun hemmed scarves. We have them available in gauze and in pongee. So here is gonna be one of the gauze scarves. Marie's gonna help me hold up. And y'all can see this is a 3 momme, which means it's a lighter weight silk, which means when it's nano-felted, you're going to be able to have the fiber travel through it a little bit better, which will cause a little less ruching and puckering. It will let the fiber travel through, and just fun thing to felt with. It works great for inclusions on felted projects. It's also great for a background or the base for a scarf. Next is our 5 momme pongee silk gauze. So you can see this one's going to be, silk pongee. So you can see this one's going to be a little bit more of a heavyweight silk, which means that when it's felted, you're going to see a lot more puckering, a lot more ruching, which is a really, really fun textural element. Both these are going to be the lime. And then I've got a couple other colors that would go really great with the bundles Kayla and Ann just showed you. It's going to be garnet, mango, and dandelion. So those are fun little hem scarves for y'all today. Thank y'all so much. And next we got Miss Marie.
Thank you. Yeah. Good job, all the fairies. Aren't they special? I know they're so awesome, and we love that they just get to take a moment and show you up close and personal some of the fibers that we have to play with here. So today we are making silk papers, if you will, or silky papers, and these are going to be used for wet felting. So I want to show you how to make them. So we made pre-felts last week, and we're leading up to a more comprehensive project. So maybe a few weeks ago, you remember, or maybe it was a month or more ago, we made our artful felt fabric. So in this case, we're going to be making another form of artful felt fabric, and I'm thinking maybe we'll call it our mosaic felt fabric, just to coin it and give it a name, because we're going to be cutting up our pre-felts and our silk papers to cut them into shapes. And I brought some things to show you today, and I'm going to ask y'all to just bear with us for a second. We're going to take just a momentary pause because we need to reset one of our cameras. I want to try and get our overhead camera back on the line. We won't die if we don't have it, but I think it'll be a little better for you if we do. So let me see if I can get that camera back up, and Ann's going to read me maybe some of the wonderful things that y'all are already saying. So I'm going to listen and work at the same time.
Lovely. Kat Trokelman shares, I loved seeing all of the summery colors.
Oh yeah, Kat. They really are a lot of fun, and I'm going to see if I can get this back up for us. I don't know if I can.
Sue shares that she's imagining lakes made with that shiny fabric.
Oh, lace made with the
Lakes.
oh, lakes. Oh, I can definitely see that. So I know one time, let's see, what was it out of? We used the Angelina, which is not the same thing, but we melted it to make a little ice skating pond. Remember, Anne? It was like for a little needle felted sculpture. So that's really a good idea. I'm going to see if I can get this guy back online. So y'all, thanks for your patience. Oh, goody, it's back. All right, let me move this up. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Live is always an interesting technical challenge. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I mentioned earlier that Karen wanted to share her cards with our BFFs. We hang out all week long in our Facebook group, so I want to pop that up so you know where to find us. And also, all the supplies we're sharing today come from our site, except for one product that I share a link with you in the description of where you can get that. So let me just, without further ado, let's jump right into this tutorial and let me show you what we're making. So we are making, or did it not choose my right camera? That's fun. Everything's all wonky now. We are making these silky fabrics. I'm going to call them silky papers. And these are really in a temporary state. I want you to think of them like a prefelt. Meaning they're designed to be further worked to be incorporated into your wet felting projects. And that's really what these are designed for, is to be worked into your wet felting projects. And I'm going to show these to you, and then we're going to make some together. And then this one right here. So this is like my fun stripe, fruit stripe side, and this is my little more of a solid side. So all of these are semi-sturdy as they are, and let me tell you what they are. This is viscose. All three of these colors are viscose that have been turned into this silky paper, if you will. This is bamboo top. That is our hand-dyed bamboo. Now the back is our midnight viscose. I liked that as a base, and then I put the hand-dyed bamboo on top. This is just a bigger version of that. Viscose and hand-dyed bamboo, and you can see that I can handle these, and I'll talk you through sort of the stability that we're going for as we make some. This is more Tussah Silk, and this is, oh, Anne, what's this what do we call this color?
That is
I'm working with it today.
Evening.
Oh yeah, it looks like a Merino in our Merino top, doesn't it? And Lagoon in viscose. This is more bamboo. You can see the bamboo is like has variegations in it, so that's kind of fun. And it's just another big sheet of the same. So more, this one actually is all Tussah Silk with the exception of a hanky that I included into the mix. And then again back to another all viscose sheet. So we want to make these, we're making these papers so that you can cut them into shapes and use them in the surface design of your felted projects, much like our pre-felt, which we made together last week. So our goal here over the last few weeks, we've been like breaking things down into really simple little steps, because my biggest desire is to give you some solid skills that you can build on to make your felting even more fun, even more exciting for you, so that you can explore it a little bit more, but so that you can also just take it a little bit further and use these same skills and take them whatever direction you want, because there's lots of stuff you can do with this. So we're going to make our own. Any questions before we get started?
Yes, Beverly wants to know, are these silky papers strong enough for a fabric marker to write on?
I have no idea. I've not tried to write on one with a fabric marker, and so it would be interesting to know whether you plan to then get that marker out. I haven't tried, but we can try and mark on one now with a regular marker. But I suppose that maybe you're wanting to trace out a shape, and we can even try our iron-on transfer pen, which might be a thing to use. So let me see if I do have an iron-on transfer pen here, and we'll try and mark that on one of our own. Okay, cool. So let's look at what you need in order to make these silky papers, and I'm just going to make some suggestions here. Let me get my supplies together, and maybe I'll sit with you if I can, now I have to manually do everything, that's okay. There we go. And let me show you what we have today. Okay. So what we have is, we are working with, I have an iron-on surface, so I'm just using an old sheet. And I recommend using some kind of fabric rather than just your basic ironing board, and maybe some fabric that is multiple layers thick, because some of the fibers that you iron or express this much heat into are going to want to release color. In other words, leach dye out, and you probably don't want to ruin your ironing surface. So just in case any of the fibers can't handle all the heat that we're going to be putting on them, you might want to have some kind of fabric that you don't mind ruining, like an old sheet. I'm also using a couple of pressing cloths, and for these I just use quilt squares. We'll be working with parchment baking paper, so you want the non-waxed kind. We're not applying any wax to our products, so just mine is just a plain brown parchment paper like you get at the regular grocery store. I think this is even a generic Whole Foods brand. And we're going to be working with starch. Now there's a few different ways you can make these silk papers, and I'm going to talk you through them after I show you my favorite way. And I'm using Mary Ellen's Best Press, and we've included a link to that in the description. So what I like to use is Mary Ellen's scent free, because I'm super sensitive to artificial chemical smells. But we also like this because it is a liquid and not an aerosol, because these fibers are so light that an aerosol tends to blow them away. So I'm going to show you how to work with this first, and this is just my way. You might find a version of this that you like even better, and maybe some of you've already made these, or even made silk papers that you've worked into your sewing projects as well. It's super fun. Okay, so here's what I have. I went ahead and prepared my baking paper. I'm going to be using 2 sheets on top and 2 sheets on bottom. And really that's just for convenience of moving things around. And then we're going to lay out our fiber. Now, truth be known, you could lay out your fiber in any which squiggly way you want, but I'm going to lay it out in the very traditional cross-hatch method. We'll try this. I'll make a point to remember this pen. Okay, so why don't we start with the Viscose? And as I mentioned, you can do this with Viscose, the Tussah Silk, the bamboo. I even worked a hanky in mine. It was a little bit more tricky. And what I didn't try was any of the Sari Silk waste, so we'll try that. Key to working with this stuff to make your nice even layers would be to split the thickness. So the top is going to come, it's rather thick. You want to control what you pull off, so split that thickness so that it's something you can grab onto conveniently. And you'll see I do this with Merino top all the time also. Just split that thickness. And then we're just going to shingle it, and you can do this any way you like. So let's look at the overhead view here. You can do this any way you like. Like, you can pre-blend your colors if you want. You can make interesting combinations. I have bound the Viscose with the bamboo, the Tussah with the bamboo, whatever. You can combine those as well. Just know that they each behave a little differently when you ultimately wet felt them. So you might see some different characteristics in how those play out in the final project. And then for today, what I'm going to do is just make a little patch of each so that we don't go too big. I showed you some of my large sheets already, but today we'll just we'll just rein it in a little bit for time's sake. So I've laid out a small patch here, and if you haven't played with these different fibers, I encourage you to. Like, what you'll notice is that the Viscose actually feels more solid. It feels a little bit shorter than the Tussah Silk, and the silk feels a little more stringy, a little more delicate, a little more wispy. They're different, the Viscose and the Tussah Silk, so I encourage you to play with those. The Tussah Silk feels like it's a thinner, like if in microns, like it would just be smaller than the Viscose. But both will really jazz up your felting projects. Now notice that I'm just making one layer. What we are going to do is lay out one layer of each and then build up our starch and our fiber in layers. So let me switch to this right here. You can see how I'm laying this out. I'll get this out of your view. So I just have one overlapping the other, and let's go ahead. This is Viscose and this is Tussah. So let's bring in some bamboo. I love this bamboo because it is hand dyed and variegated, and it makes it really fun to work with. So this is a little more narrow, and it also has a little bit more of a curl to it. It's, you know, what you see sometimes when things are indie dyed. So it's already got a little bit of a squiggle to it. It's not going to lay just as straight as your other stuff, but that's okay. Really what we're creating is, you know, ideally some sheets that we can cut into nice crisp shapes for use later. Otherwise, you could just put this right on your project, just how you want it. Okay, so once you have your areas laid out, give it a look and, you know, fill in any bare areas that you want, just a little bit. And then what we're going to do is apply our starch. Well, let me jump over here. Let's see. I'm going to lay down a little viscose. Actually, I'll use Tussah. I'm going to lay down a little Tussah and apply my hanky to it. I'll put a little hanky on there and a little of the Silk waste because I haven't used that, but I'll cut the hanky. Okay, there we go. So there's just another patch. Okay, before we spray, do you have any questions?
Yes, a couple of our felting friends want to know what exactly is viscose and what's the difference between viscose and Tussah Silk?
Yeah, that is a good question. Okay, so Tussah Silk is actually made from silk cocoons. Tussah Silk is a type of silk. So Tussah Silk, the silkworms are allowed to, the cocoons are harvested from a natural environment. So the cocoons tend to be a little more towards the off-white color because the silkworms are free to eat just whatever they want out in the open. So a Tussah Silk tends to be a little more yellow than like a Bombyx Silk. And a Bombyx Silk, they can eat only mulberry leaves. Whereas viscose is actually made from a wood pulp. So it is actually so processed that it's considered a man-made fiber, and it's not a natural fiber any longer, maybe because it's so highly processed. But people really like it in their felting for what it offers. It tends to bubble a little bit less, or people feel like it bubbles a little bit less. It can be incorporated with wool and allow you to even use a higher ratio of viscose and create a lighter weight project. So they are made from different things. The Tussah Silk actually comes from silk cocoons and made from silkworms, and viscose is a wood pulp project. Did I answer everything? That was it. Okay, cool. All right. So we have our stuff laid out here, and now we want to apply the starch. So with the starch, what you want to do is saturate this layer without blowing your fibers all around. That's the ideal thing, is you just want it to be wet. So this is why I like this product, and we're going to fully wet our fibers. Now, what you'll find is some of these fibers are really resistant to the liquid, and maybe even one color performs differently than another color. So saturation is really important because the starch is acting like a glue and it's going to hold everything together. So this is using this particular starch is really a wet process. All right, so let's put our second layer on, and I'm only doing 2 layers of every fiber, pretty easy. And again, just get your fiber so you have control of it. This stuff, if you wear black, it's going to be all over you. Viscose and all this stuff. If you're having issues with the fiber sticking to your hands, you might try putting lotion on your hands before you work. If it feels like they're flying away because of your air conditioning, you might need to shut off the air just until you get all the fibers damp. So let me go back to an overhead, and then you can see what we're doing. All we're doing is just like a traditional wet felting layout. And like I said, you could just make a whole big mishmash of this stuff, and you don't have to lay them out so orderly. But what I'm going for is a really solid coverage of these fibers so that when I cut them, it feels like a solid little block of color. And I like to do the overlaps as opposed to a whole bunch of individual blocks because it gives you some interesting transitions. Okay, so we are just gently overlapping all the layers, just like with a traditional crisscross wet felting layout. Okay, so that is viscose and tussah, and then our bamboo. And remember, as I mentioned, you can mix the two up. You're just going to get different types of behaviors with your felting, so you might want to play with that and see how you like it. I'm going to take that all the way to the edge, but those wispy edges might be fun to use in your project as well. Okay. Now I'm just pulling off the staple length of the fiber as it naturally comes. I'm not trying to break it or anything or cut it short. These are just laid out in their natural lengths. And then down here, grab my scissors. This is sari silk waist, which are saris. Think of Indian clothing that women wear that have been, they're made of silk. They have been basically upcycled. So down to a very raw state, they've been shredded and probably bleached out and then dyed. So I'm just going to take some of this, and like I said, I haven't done this process with sari silk waist before, but why not? Let's do it together. What good would it be? I don't know. I guess just that you can control it within a little square, whereas when you're felting, that's really a challenging thing to do. Controlling these things is not usually possible. And I'm going to do the same thing with a hanky. Instead of using an entire hanky, this is a silk hanky, so this is an unspun silk cocoon that has been stretched into a square. First it's degummed and then it's stretched into a square and then it's dyed. And they're tricky to dye because they're really resistant to water. So don't be surprised if it's resistant to your starch as well. It really, when we dye these things or certain types of silk, we usually have to soak them overnight in a solution to help the water actually penetrate the fiber. So there we go. There's just a couple of little fun things for us to make, and here's what we do. We go ahead and add another layer of starch. Now see how these, I don't know if you can see how these are already blowing up. So if you experience that with your air conditioning, or if you have jewelry or something that's clingy and it wants to grab onto it, you just go ahead and take those off. Okay, so everything is pretty well saturated from the top. That's when I take this paper, and I'm using two papers again. And this is just what I've done. This is like kind of what's working for me. And then I'm just going to spread it all out and flatten it. So right now I am just trying to get all of that water to penetrate all the way through. You don't want to lift up the paper and peek just yet because the fiber is going to want to stick to the paper instead of itself. So now what we want to do is iron. But I'll let you peek at this right here. Can you see how dark these little blotches are? That shows you just how wet everything is, which is awesome. And this just provides another barrier for the iron to hit. So on your iron, I like to use my iron all the way up. So I'm going to use it on its hottest setting. And for me, that is linen and cotton as opposed to silk and wool. Just turn it all the way up and we're just going to press. So now, truth be told, you don't have to iron these. You could just let them air dry. I guess maybe I'm impatient or excited. Get my iron to heat up. And just want it to go. You could just let them air dry flat. Here we go. It's just starting to, I didn't preheat it. You could air dry them, lay them flat, but I really just like how they seem to come together a little bit better when I press them. But keep your iron moving. And we're actually not going to press them 100% dry today. It takes a lot of effort, but I like to get most of the moisture out. Okay. I'm going to iron this for a few minutes. Oh, I meant to have my steam off. So have the steam off. Your iron should be dry and hot. So no steam on your iron. And this Mary Ellen's Best Press, by the way, does not leave any residue on your iron whatsoever. Even if you get it on there, you're not going to have any residue on there. So I like to keep this moving rather than stay in one place, and the top piece allows me to move to either a drier spot. You can always pull another sheet as well, but if you have any fibers that are sticking over to the very edge, you can move this sheet, the top sheet, so that none of those fibers actually get onto your iron. Okay, any questions, Anne?
Yes, Leslie asks, will heat dull the silk?
You would think so. But all of these papers I've showed you that I've made have been made the same way. So the paper provides a really nice barrier, and the fabric that we're going to use as well. And actually, I've made a lot of wet felted things and then blocked with an iron after and not had it dull. So it has to get hot enough to dull that sheen, and we're not going to experience that here with this, I'm glad to say, which is really fun. Okay, so if you look at this, you see how wet this is. I'm going to flip it over and iron from the back now, just for a moment, and then we're going to peek. So go ahead and iron from both sides. And if at any point you feel like your paper is just too wet, well then you can bring in another sheet. But in a minute, we're going to switch out paper for fabric. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Before you iron, Linda wants to know, is it okay to be able to see holes in your layout, or if you see any holes or if it's too see-through, should you add more fiber?
Okay, so Linda asked, do you absolutely need 100% solid layout before you iron? You don't. You could be a little more willy-nilly with it if you want. You might just think about what that is going to look like when it's cut. Because for me, I'm going for solid blocks. Let me see where I have them. I have them here. I'm going for solid blocks that I can cut, and I'll grab that for you so that when I put it, or solid blocks or solid shapes when I cut, so that when I put it into my design, it's going to be solid. So you can have it willy-nilly if you want, or try and control those shapes in a different way. It's totally subjective. Okay.
Laura asks, can you iron without starch?
Well, it's not going to stick, so I'll share with you after we finish this piece, then I'll share with you a few other ways that you can make these, just so I don't confuse. But I'm going to just go to the overhead real fast so you can see what happens if you try and rush. See how it wants to stick to the paper, and if I go to pull it away, it's just barely holding together, but it's starting to kind of fuse together a little bit. So we want to keep ironing, and I find that it can be really helpful to bring in a cloth, but I just want to check and make sure that everything is fully wet, because if I have dry areas, those areas are not going to fuse. So take your time and peel off these wispy edges over here, meaning don't let those stick. Just be really gentle and peel back so that you can see, not is it done. We're not checking for doneness. We're checking to see, is everything wet? Because sometimes the water does not want to penetrate through, or the liquid does not want to penetrate all the way through the back. But I can see that all of those are nice and wet. And if you're concerned about any area, then go ahead and just blast it again with your starch. And we can keep ironing. Now, sorry. We could use the fabric instead of the paper, and I've done that also, but I find that the paper initially is a little bit easier to peel off of the wet silk, and to check and see how are we doing. I like to use the cloth because I feel like it helps absorb some of the moisture. And truth be known, I do not know what is in this Mary Ellen's Best Press. I have no idea. But I imagine that some of it's just water and some of it is something else. So you could make your own starch if you want. Like if you normally make your own starch, you could make that. You just want any starch that you use to be really well dissolved so that you're not leaving any, you don't want to leave any solids on your piece. I'm going to go ahead and change this once more. Like I said, we're probably not going to get this 100% dry at this moment, but while I iron, let me tell you how else you can do this. So I'm using Mary Ellen's, which is a very wet product. Maybe you use something like this, like a friend of mine likes to use this to finish her felted pieces. If you use a spray starch like this, be mindful of the aerosol. The aerosol is going to blow your fibers around, and that can be a problem. So if this is all you have, or if this is what you love to use, then go ahead and mist your project with a little bit of water so that everything is laying down, and then apply your starch. That's an option, is to apply this after misting with water and sort of tapering it down so it won't blow under the aerosol. If you're making things for other people or something you want to sell, just keep in mind the smell of the starch, because some people are very sensitive to smells and would be kind of averse to getting something that smelled like spray starch. It's just something to think about. Okay, so spray starch is an option one. Two, I should mention I have done the water and starch method. I have used the 100% aerosol method, and those are both fine, but this is my preferred, is using this Mary Ellen's Best Press. Now you could also, instead of using starch, whether homemade or store-bought, you could sort of felt it. The stuff doesn't felt, but you could kind of glue it together with soap and water, letting all of the water dry. So you could lay out all these fibers and then get your gooeyest, gummiest soap, like our olive oil soap would probably work really well, and then sort of smear it around through mesh. It would have to be. You'd have to press it all through without messing up the fibers. So, and then you would just let it dry. So that is a different process. But this is my preferred method, and it's a little bit quick because you can kind of use them the very next day. But you want them to be dry before you cut them. So let's see how we're doing. This is my little hanky one. Oh, I might have to cut that. They're very wet, no mistaking. They're very, very wet. But they're starting to hold together as a thing. And there we go. Sorry, my hanky got all entangled. They're starting to hold together as a thing. And this one has the Tussah Silk waist and the hanky in it. And this is just the Tussah Silk. Oh, Tussah Silk and Viscose, right, the purple Viscose. Viscose and Tussah Silk. So what I'm going to do is iron for just a few more minutes, and then we're going to set those to dry, and then we'll look at some that are already dry. So do you have any more questions about how to make this? What do you got?
A couple of our felting friends want to know if the parchment paper will be reusable.
Oh, okay, great question. I did mean to tell you that. Yes, let your parchment paper dry, especially if you're using the Mary Ellen's, because it's not leaving really any residue. Like you can see how clean my iron is, really clean. And so it is absolutely reusable. And I meant to tell you, as long as your dye is not leaching, well then consider this primed. Like I've tried a method where you spray your cloth first and then you lay your fiber actually down on the cloth, and I didn't like it because I felt like the fiber very readily stuck to the cloth. But I do feel like this starts to absorb some of that starch and becomes a really good partner in this process to reuse over and over. So consider reusing your fabric. Get all this out of the way. Okay, so you can tell it's starting to dry when, can you see, looking at this, you don't see it bound to, I keep knocking it over, you don't see it bound to the fiber so much. So can you see when you look at it how it's kind of separating, and that shows that it's getting drier, which is awesome. So I'm going to flip it over one more time, and you can still see a little wet patch there. If you peel this off of the paper at this point, and you lay down, I'm throwing all my paper on the floor, and you lay down just your fabric, then you'll see really how much moisture is left in it. And sometimes there's is, and sometimes there isn't. So it'll show you really, and this is getting really pretty dry. I'm not getting any big water patches on my fabric. And I know that fabric doesn't look very great for y'all in the overhead. And how do we get the smiley face up there? Sorry. I'm hitting all these buttons today. How I'm sitting, I'm a little clumsy. Okay. There we go. So now I do not really expect this to stick problematically to my fabric, but it does want to bind to it just a little bit, and that hanky is very tricksy. So beware of the hankies because they're just not going to want to play in this process super well, but if you can get them to a place where you can cut out your shape, if you need to keep starching them, do. And mostly we just want them to kind of get to that state where we can cut them out. So I'm going to take away my paper for a second. Doesn't look very good on the weight. Let me peel this stuff back so you can kind of see how it is, and then we're going to set these over to dry. All right, so just for a moment, we're going to put all of these things away, and then I'll give you a quick top-down view of what these things look like right now, and then we'll look at some others that we are going to play with. I'll pass this to Anne. Thank you, Anne. Okay, so these are the pieces that we're making today, and I'll bring these back next week so that you can, we'll use them next week in an actual project along with the pre-felts that we made together last week. So just for last reference, this is the Viscose, this right here is Tussah Silk, and then this is the bamboo. So that's side one, and here is side two, where the fibers were going a different direction. These fibers are going this way. So you can see that this was the darker part of the bamboo and this is the lighter part of the bamboo. So you can use either side that you want, and you can also use these transitions. This is the Tussah Silk on one side, and then on the other side we have the Sari Silk waist, and I really like how that came out. It's super shiny and fun. And then the hanky, which just doesn't want to play, and I had that same experience with the other pieces that I made. So we're going to do, and what I like to do with these is just I like to use something that dries fast, so like not a towel, but instead just a quilt square like this, and then just set them somewhere to dry. Set them on your porch, set them on the swing, set them on the chair, or just lay them out in your studio, wherever, and just let them dry overnight. You can have them ready-made in a day, but you're going to have to keep ironing to have them ready right away. So let's look real quick at these ones that I made yesterday, and we'll look just a little more closely so you can see what to look for. Okay, so right here, this is all Tussah Silk in this piece. So this is Tussah Silk Midnight on the back, which to me is just gorgeous and an incredible sheen. And then these are Tussah Silk in the various colors, and then I've got this hanky on top. So you can see here where the hanky is binding here, and here where it's not. So binding, sort of. Oh, here it is, binding, but I can pull up those loose layers. And I want you to know I starched this just as much as everything else, but the hankies are really resistant to taking on that liquid. So don't be surprised if they're a little tricksy for you. This piece is 100% viscose, and one of my favorites, just for the colors, really. I love those colors. So you can see that whether you're using viscose, whether you're using bamboo or Tussah Silk, that they're all going to play very similarly. This is the bamboo, can get a little stringy, and I want to show you what it looks like when the two layers start to delaminate. And this might happen if you overhandle it or don't get it wet enough. Those layers might start to separate. So decide whether you think it's salvageable or whether you want to go back after it and add more starch to the process and make yourself another little sheet. But whatever's the case, once you're all done, you should be able to cut out. This is the Midnight Tussah Silk. This is the bamboo, and this is the bamboo that has delaminated. See, there's two separate layers there. But look, you could use it just like that. Even though it's delaminated, you do have two nice little, almost like gossamer layers. You see how see-through that is, and this one too. And you can even put these together for a really interesting effect on a piece. You might decide that you like these really wispy end layers. Like, that's really powerful, and you might not normally get something so interesting if you, like, that could be a block right there a block on a piece in a mosaic where you have the dark background and this wispy coming over. But then making these silk papers allow you to have a really clean design. So I hope, I don't know if I covered everything, but that's the goal today, is just to make your silky, shiny papers so that you can cut them out for our project next week. So I'm going to grab the pre-felt. Where did we make? So we made a pre-felt together last week, and we rolled it like 150 or 160 times from each edge. So if you want to, we're going to be felting a fabric next week, and I'm calling it Artful Mosaic Felt Fabric or something like that. We're going to be using the pre-felts that we made, which included the luster fibers as well as some silk fabrics, if you wish, whatever you like. They included some of the commercial pre-felts that you can buy, and then we just made pre-felts with the merino top. We're going to combine those with some of our silky shiny papers to make a more complex felt fabric, maybe than some of you have made before. So that's your assignment this week, is to make your pre-felts and make your silky, shiny fabrics. Do we have any questions before we go, Anne?
Yep, we've got a couple.
Okay, go.
Alrighty, so firstly, Linda wants to know, are the fibers only fusing together because of the starch, or is the starch the only thing holding them together?
Yes, so Linda wants to know, is that the only binding agent? Yes, that is the starch is the only binding agent. So like I said, you can use starch, or you could use a water and soap method, which of course leave the soap in. And you can use a starch like this or the aerosol starch, just wet it first, but starch is the only thing holding those fibers together, and it will wash away when we felt. So unlike some maybe more structurally integral silk papers that you might make for other types of fiber art, these are very delicate, and the starch will wash out when we wet felt. So we're just doing it to control the shapes as we go into the surface design of the wet felt. Cool. Any other questions? Okay. Thank y'all, and thank y'all for hanging out with us today. We love having you here.
How strong is this fabric? Will it fall apart, or if you handle it a bunch, or would you need scissors to cut it?
It would. You could probably tear it apart, so you can see like here where this piece is delaminating. It's not going to have a lot of integrity, so I would be very delicate with it. That's the idea. If you, for example, if you roll it, it's going to want to take on that shape. If you fold it, it might break some of those bonds. So consider it very, I don't want to tear it to show you, but consider it very delicate, like you could rip it apart. So don't let the kitties get a hold of it, kitties or kitties get a hold of it. It is very delicate. Any other questions?
Yes, could you use these papers for needle felting?
I can't see how to needle felt with these. I mean, I think that as soon as you poke them, they're going to want to separate. So they're not, I can't see how you would needle felt with them personally. I mean, maybe you could, but I feel like you're just either going to poke holes through them or tear them. So they're just really super delicate. I would use them, I would only really think about using them in wet felting. Or, yeah, you might stitch them onto something, but I still think that they're very delicate. Okay. Any more questions before we go? Okay. No? Yeah, it says we're done. Okay, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. As today's project was super simple and super, super short. We just appreciate you, and I can't wait to see what you make. So pick colors that you like. I'm going to stick with my blue theme. We are going to make a more complex fabric next week. So plan to have your pre-felts ready and your silky fibers ready if you like these, making these silky papers, and make sure you share them in our group. Whoops, that's a wrong button. Make sure you share them in our group, LivingFelt Friends. You can also tag us on Instagram, and I hope if you found this tutorial helpful that you'll consider giving the video a like. It's underneath the live chat, so I think you have to close the live chat to give it a like, but maybe after the show. And if we didn't answer your question today, please post it in the comments below. We read all of those. And plus, if you ask those questions, you get entered to win prizes, which I think Anne has some right now. Do you have prizes right now?
I do happen to have some prizes.
Anne has prizes. Come on in, girlfriend.
Alrighty. Do you want to hold the hat?
I'll hold the hat. Why don't you tell them what the prizes are?
Today, your prize is you can pick 4 embellishment fibers like silk hankies, bamboo top, Viscose top, Tussah Silk.
So they get one from each?
They do.
Yeah, okay, so you
Yeah.
get one from each. One bamboo, one tussah, one viscose, and a hanky. Fun! Okay, so any colors you want. And we have lots and lots and lots of colors. Okay, Ann, so you draw the first name.
Alrighty. Okay.
Doris Deaver.
Woo! Hold it up so everyone can see it. I'll draw one too. I won't peek. My hand's empty. Now it's full. I think I have just one. Just one. They're stuck together. Here we go. It is Heather Teed. Congratulations, Heather. Congratulations, Doris. So just go to our website and scroll to the bottom and click Contact Us and use the form to let us know that you're a prize winner on today's show, and pick out your colors and we'll get your goodie box sent out to you straight away, no matter where you are in the world. And yeah, that's it. So remember to share what you make in our group, LivingFelt Friends. And just till next time, y'all have a great weekend. All our U.S. friends have a great holiday weekend. Make cool stuff and just do anything you can to feel good. And we appreciate you hanging out with us. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Have a good week.